Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Welcome back. We've been talking about a drone. This is an experimental drone that we're going to make. It's captured by these bars, so when we're experimenting with it and we get it flying, if it starts to be crazy, it can't break itself. And we might travel with it on this trailer. It does. We have a diesel engine here that's powering the bent axis hydraulic pumps, and we'll run hydraulic fluid lines over here to these hydraulic motors that run the propellers. We're actually going to make this same exact drone, except swap out these motors for electric motors, and we're going to have an electric version of it. We'll start out with that. The electric version probably will be able to lift up 800 pounds. This is a 6-foot diameter propeller. In order to have a stable hover, you have to modulate the RPM of the propeller individually. In the hydraulic system, the electric system modulates it with an electronic controller. I'll show you that. That's another lecture. The hydraulic system is modulating the RPM of these pumps, of these motors, with a valve system, and I'll show you that. And we talked about in the drone that's a flying drone, it uses a jet engine because that diesel engine weighs 1,400 pounds. The jet engine weighs 240 pounds. And it pumps the fluid through this control valve to modulate the RPM of the propellers. This is with the hydraulic system. And the modulation occurs because we have a valve body. In the valve body is a valve stem. And the valve stem moves up and down because of this linear actuator. And this linear actuator has a servo-controlled motor. So we have computerized digital control of the flow and the RPM of the propeller. And we're going to talk about all of this, but we have to talk about them one at a time. And here is that linear actuator. It has the servo motor. It's geared down, and then this gear turns that little one, and that little one turns this one, and this one turns that one, and this one. So it's geared down multiple times to and you can see that this servo motor controls this gear, and it just keeps lowering the reduction to get torque to this structure here that turns, and this structure has inside of it the ball nut. This is just that structure, and that ball nut is spun around, and when the ball nut spins around, it moves this ball shaft, and that's a particular type of linear actuation mechanism where rotary motion is converted to linear motion. And I've broken it all open so you can see how it works, and I'm going to talk about all that. But I was thinking that it makes sense to me to say, well, where did this linear actuator come from anyway? Then I'll get into a more detailed discussion of that. And I always like to see what is going on. And we can see here from Bing the European river otter in the Netherlands. And I'm pretty sure he's like, "Hi, what are you doing out here?" And then I think he looked at me and said, "Listen, would you talk to me and tell me about your drones and robots?" And I said, "Well, sure." So that's pretty much, I'm pretty confident that's what that is. And to get it completely straight, we need to go to my website. Of course, I do want to say hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Just discussion. We're having some fun. Enjoy yourself. I have a YouTube channel. I invite you to subscribe. I think you'll like it. I have a website, and you go to Well, for robots, you go to the area discussions about a robot. And I always want to throw in here, be careful. You can hurt somebody with a physically real item. So manage it in a manner that's legally allowed and reasonable and safe with physically real objects. If you can't do that, I advise don't create it as a physically real item. So let's take a look at something real quick. And this is a robot that I created, arms and legs. I have a discussion about hands. It runs on hydraulic cylinders. It's a very simple design for hydraulic cylinders. And I watched the people that make the robots. They say they're humanoid, but you watch them move and they don't move like a human being at all. Sort of like a human, but not really. I have a lot of training in human anatomy and physiology, and they just don't move like humans. And I thought, well, maybe it's physically impossible to make a robot that mimics a human. And I got a high quality 3D drawing program and said, I'll just make one and see what happens. And this robot has all the proportions of a human being, has the same joints as a human being, the same joint of range of motion as a human being, the same joint axes of motion. Unless you're some ultra athlete, whatever position you can get yourself into, this robot can get itself into that position too. And so it's not impossible to make a robot that absolutely can mimic a human being. And I will show you one thing on my website. So you can go to, we'll leave him here to wave at us. You can go to my website, you can go to the menu, you can do robot discussion about a robot. And then you can look at the robot walking. That's my discussion about walking. And right in here, I wanted to see how much it would weigh to figure out what would be needed for it to walk in terms of the strength of these hydraulic cylinders. And right here, if you click on this, it's an FBX. It is a zip file, so you have to extract it. But it will let you take all of these parts yourself at your own computer and see them. And if you want to print it, you can print a 3D version of this robot and, just get some bolts from the hardware store to make the joints. You will see that this robot can mimic a human being. And so to realize that that's not the issue. And if you look at comments, it comes out, they say really, these are hydraulic. It's hydraulic and it won't work. And I'm like, and when you tried hydraulic in a robot, it didn't work. And they're like, no, we never use hydraulics in robots to mimic humans because they won't work. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I thought, and they said, we have to have these electric motor, computer controlled gearhead, servo motor, rotary encoder systems. And I thought, well, if that's so important to you, I think it has to be a linear action like this because that's how human muscles work. And it allowed me to create a human mimicking robot easily. I thought, well, okay, I'll make a electric motor device that is identical to a hydraulic cylinder. And then they will be able to be happy that they have something electric. And I thought, I wonder, how strong does this thing have to be? And I thought, well, if I'm going to have this device that mimics the hydraulic cylinders, I need to consider what is a muscle that I can use to test for this. And I thought, well, a pretty significant strength event is to get into the deep knee bend, because this quadriceps femoris equivalent is under a significant strain. And so this is back when the robot didn't have arms. I put arms on him or her. And so now the robot is in a deep knee. Now remember, it's a deep knee bend on one leg. So the robot has to be leaning over so the weight of the robot is over that foot. And I wanted to say, well, okay, what is the force that this has to create in order for this robot to be in this deep knee bend. And that was the next thing that we looked at. And so this is in SketchUp. It's just a quick little model of a knee. That's the tibia. This is the femur. This is the knee. And that's the articulation of the knee. And there is the patella it pushes this ligament out a little ways to get a better mechanical advantage. But the quadriceps femoris attaches to the patellar ligament and goes around the corner down to the tibia. And the pulling of this muscle is what keeps your knee, or what allows you to get into a deep knee bend, and it keeps your hips from just going on down because this muscle pulls tight. And this has maybe a 10-to-1 leverage. And you might say, why is it leveraged? And the answer is, human muscle can only contract at 15 centimeters per second. And you might say, that's not right, because soccer players can kick a soccer ball a lot faster than that. But what goes on is the femur is leveraged to the hip. And so if it's a 7-to-1 leverage or a 10-to-1 leverage there, then this is moving not at 15 centimeters per second, but at 150 centimeters per second. And this is leveraged to that. So this tibia is not moving at 150 centimeters per second. It's moving at 1,500 centimeters. And so the leverage is what allows human beings to move their limbs quickly. The only disadvantage of a leverage is if you put 200 pounds right here, the question becomes, how much force is on this ligament, which is the force that has to be generated by this muscle? And it's not that hard to do. It's basically a leverage from this distance from here to there is about 2.3 inches, and this distance from here to here is 18 inches. That's the length of the femur. So 18 inches divided by 2.2 inches is 8. So the ratio is 8. So there's an 8-to-1 leverage here. So if you have 200 pounds here, then this is getting pulled on with 1,600 pounds. And that's what this muscle equivalent is going to have to do. And there's a research paper I saw. And this is a biomechanics of the patellofemoral joint. And if you go down here far enough, somewhere in here, ambulation and the amount of force on a deep knee bend or squat is 7.8 times the body weight. So that's what this paper shows. And so that goes back. And of course, you might say, well, hang on a second. If this is pushing down like that and this is hooked to here, it's just going to kick the foot up. But actually, what happens with human beings is, and you do it yourself, you'll notice that your knee is bent so that when this tries to swing this around, it's pushing your foot into the floor. Your body is actually this way. So the weight of your body is over your foot. And when this pulls and tries to let's see if I can show what I'm talking about here. This is going to try to do, when that thing pulls on it, this is going to try to do that, but it's not going to be able to because this foot is on the floor. So this just pulls. And so, and what this comes down to is this quadriceps femoris equivalent piston in this amount of space has to pull with 1,600 to 1,800 pounds of force. And it turns out that human muscles contract at 15 centimeters per second. So this has to make 1,600 pounds of force at 15 centimeters per second. And we can do a power calculation on that. And what I discovered was there isn't any motor I could find that would do that. But I did create the electric equivalent of a hydraulic cylinder, and it's a very nice linear actuator, and I could explain more to you, but she has said it's over. I'm out of time. So I will stop and we'll get some more explanation in the next video.